Preparing the stream. Here we go. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Office Hours with John and Dave. And we've got our special guest, Brent Voeller, here today. Brent, thank you so much for hanging out with us. And we're looking forward to hearing much more from you. I'll let John do the official intro because I can't wait to hear how everything's going.
It's official. It's official. This is the official intro. Show number 40-something-ish.
Yeah. It's got to be a big number now.
Yeah. So it's official. You know, the economy and the way we work and the way we do things continues to change at a very fast pace. And as most of you know, we're here to help people in the middle of that change, and kind of specifically around small business and solopreneurs and fractionals. That's what the office hours are for. So really excited to have Brent Voeller on today. Brent knows a lot. I don't know how much he knows about important things like fishing and how to cook an outdoor pizza, the really important stuff. But Brent knows the money business quite a bit. And he and I talk quite a bit. And today we want to get into a little bit, this is sort of a crystal ball kind of day. Where I'd like to kind of, pick your brain, Brent, get some get some dialogue on where, with so much change in the market, our current level of change is going to affect how we do things in the future. And so I want to do a little crystal balling, a little imagining, and just talk broadly about how the way we work, specifically fractional, is probably going to change how we retire and how we sort of store our acorns and where they need to go. And what it is today. I promise Brent, I'm not going to have him talk about it. I don't think he can. No financial advice, no commitments. That nobody wants to talk about that anyway. But where is all this headed? So Brent, thank you very much for joining us today. Mucho obrigado. And do your best to kind of help us think our way forward as to what's coming. So the first question I have for you is, all right, we're changing the way we earn money, right? We're changing it dramatically. And the way we earn money tomorrow, I just guess it's not going to be the same. And then how we save it and what we do with it. So what do you think over the next 10 or 15 years with fractional becoming more of a thing? How do you think that's going to change what we do, sort of what we're used to doing in terms of how we retire?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me, and you're right. We will not talk financial stuff here. So
I promise.
Yeah, I think that the theme is going to be to parallel with the reason why someone would leave corporate America and work for, which you see me post on LinkedIn, for You Inc., YOU, right? Working for yourself, is you're in the driver's seat. And so you can choose the type of work you do. You can now choose the type of retirement program that you can build for yourself. Is the employer, right? Too many times I think we think ourselves as the employee when we're fractional, but really you are the employer too. You're in the driver's seat. All the options you had in corporate America, you still have, plus more. With flexibility.
Interesting. So my family business, not my business, but what I grew up in, my dad worked for Piper Jaffray here in the Twin Cities market for 42 years. And, you learn things a certain way, right? But for the most part, and I don't know, Dave, if this was similar with your upbringing too, but for the most part was take some money out of every check, put it in a safe place that somebody smart tells you what to do with it. And that, I think, has been our culture for a very, very long time.
Absolutely. Yep.
And now it's not necessarily. So it's interesting, like, okay, that's changed. Now, what should I think about? What might I, don't give me advice, Brent, we promise no advice, but what should I be thinking about? What's gonna come my way? So flexibility. How do I move out of corporate and into still taking care of my future?
Well, in terms of the flexibility, like I said, your options are still available. You can still do a 401k.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But you're not restricted to what someone says this is how the 401k is going to operate. Now you get to decide how does it operate.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons why I say where you got flexibility, for those of us that have a significant legal other, like a spouse in the relationship, you can intertwine them into that flexibility and enhance the way that they can put money away for that future date of retirement.
Brent, is the industry you're in trying to still kind of like getting their arms around this as well? Like, we have to come up with new products. We got to come up with new advice, new thinking, because it's changing. Is the industry sort of in the early stage of, we think it's going to go this way?
Well, I mean, so the programs that we can offer still are dictated by what Congress passes at a federal level.
Those politicians.
I know. So, but I do see that is more and more of the working population is working for themselves. They're going to probably demand and pull through more options. Right. So one of the things that I've already seen where the popularity is growing by leaps and bounds, where you're branding, but is the concept of that solo 401k.
Yeah.
Where companies have branded it as a one 401k or an I 401k.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I'm seeing more, and this is anecdotal, but more CPAs or tax professionals that are aware of it and working with their clients saying this might be an option to look at.
What is that? What is an I-401k? I've never heard that.
Yeah, so I-401k or one 401k or solo 401k, all the same thing. Just think of it as a solopreneur, right? Yep. This is your ability to create a 401k with all the bells and whistles that you could normally get, that you felt like you could only get from an employer in corporate America.
Gotcha. And Congress has a say in that.
Yes. Yeah.
Congress.
Always.
They're always a factor.
Yes.
Jeez. Well, you can't avoid it, right? You can't avoid it. And they tend to come along faster and later anyway in most things. The market's going to move at one speed, and then the political influence is going to come a little bit behind and probably get a lot of it wrong.
Yep.
But at least they'll make a lot of laws around it.
Yes. Yeah. And I would just say that solo 401k is just, it's just a wonderful vehicle for people to take advantage of.
Solo 401k. So we're going to want to share that and that kind of stuff. That's a good thing to know. Mm-hmm. Earlier this week, I got in a writing mood, and I wrote my newsletter, The Orbit. And as Dave knows, I follow Professor Scott Galloway pretty religiously. He's out of NYU Stern, and he sort of sits on top of the economy and calls balls and strikes as he sees them. He's a very fair umpire. And he did a really interesting, it came out of the Journal of the Economic Institute, and he shared the data. I think this is influential too on earnings and savings. Is the data on it has these two lines, and essentially it says the trajectory of growth in the United States between wages here and productivity here, they were pretty much coupled in the good old days, right up until about the 70s. They if productivity was good, the employees did good, and everybody, it was great, right? And it's funny how that retraced, but in somewhere in the 70s, right about when David Bowie was doing what David Bowie does. And I know, burnt sienna was a design thing, and kitchens and all that kind of stuff. I had a Huffy in the 70s. Right around then, they split. They did this. So productivity, which means money kept getting made, right? But it didn't go to the workers at the same rate it did. And so it kind of went like this. Money and productivity and workers here. And it's been that way since the mid 70s. Now, what happens with that? Well, guess what? We don't have the benefits of sharing in that wealth that we had up until the mid 70s. So my contention is that is not a sustainable model. We can't do that forever, right? You can't have 350 million working Americans supporting a small group making all the money and call that a functioning society. It just won't, it doesn't work, right? So my contention, and this is a little self-serving, I know, is that in the fractional world, we can claw some of that back. And I'm not saying it was evil or bad. I'm not judging what that happened throughout history, but I'm saying employers can keep those wages lower by hiring fractional people as opposed to full-time, thus continuing their arc. But my hope is that the workers can go like this along with the growth. Okay, now that that's going to happen, Brent, a lot more people, hopefully, are going to have a whole lot more money, but it's going to come from 4 or 5 different places where before it came from one.
Yes.
How does that influence? What do we do with all of that?
So even though it's coming from many sources, it's still funneling through your business.
Okay.
From a tax
LLC.
Right? Yep.
For taxes. Okay.
Yes. So now now again, like I just said, you have all this flexibility to decide, do I want to take these dollars today and pay taxes on it today? Or do I have reasons, i.e. retirement, to defer some of that revenue in my own customized and flexible retirement plan that I created is the employer?
So clearly the theme is it's coming into our own hands in ways that it probably hasn't in a very long time.
Yes. Yep.
Dave, I think you worked in the financial business for a little bit in your career, didn't you?
I did. I was actually at US Bank in the same building as Piper. So, hey, there you go. Right. It's fascinating how many options there really are for people to take control of their financial literacy for sure, but also their financial futures. And it is tricky as a small business owner. And I know especially as a fractional to keep everything kind of going in the same direction and stop and keep from losing momentum. And it's also really dangerous for people to take their eye off the ball and or panic, right? So to move. And so that was always one of the things that I was sure to share when I was at US Bank is, okay, well, hang on. The goal is to buy low and sell high with any securities or anything, but same goes for you and your financial positions. Make sure that when you have resources to invest those resources, and when you start reaping those rewards, don't either panic and remove as things are starting to go down, or to over diversify and or get out before you really can see some of the benefits. And so I think for me, that's kind of the other thing that I see as a marketing agency owner is there's a lot of tech bros that are talking about NFTs and all of the other things, and the digital capital and Ethereum and Bitcoin and all that stuff. Certainly there's money to be made, but you can spend a lot of time and money and a lot of gambling to really try and chase after shiny objects. So,
I think that's a good idea. Throw it all in NFTs and Bitcoin and the things that aren't as good. Just dump it all in there. So Brent and I share. I don't know if I've shared this story with you, Brent, but it's gonna hit home. So Dave, you may not know, Brent comes from one of my favorite states, North Dakota, up in the Grand Forks area, and this story took place in the 70s. Doesn't relate to my stupid reference I just made about my article. But sunflowers, okay, this is interesting. There was a time in North Dakota when somebody came to a part of North Dakota and said, everybody go all in on sunflowers. The market's hot for them. Everybody wants them. It's fantastic. And same freaking thing as NFTs. Somebody sold them on the idea that the next big win is going to come from sunflowers. Now, Brent, this may have predated you and I, but guess what happened? Drought. Bugs, shit happens, right? Shit happens. And they got burned. They got really, really burned. So I don't even think this is financial advice. Don't do the shiny objects. Just because you have a little bit more money because you're fractional and it's whatever. Don't do the shiny objects. I think that stays. So anyway, well, that's interesting. On another dimension, right? So if I'm fractional, I'm going to go out and I'm going to have 3 to 5 clients and I'm charging a number and they're happy and I'm happy and I don't have to participate in their benefits, which benefits me, right? Because I got more money. But another aspect of where I'm going to sell and realize, future gains, Brent, is going to be part of fractional is you get board roles. You start other startups. So you're starting a business, you become an equity partner. So the opportunity to bring income into your family outside of what you charge your clients is really early stage. If fractional kind of started in earnest in 1819, it's really starting to come into shape that there's future earnings on startups and partnerships and equity. What do you see? Where is that going to go? How do we deal with that in terms of, again, saving those acorns for the future?
So, I mean, some of that would come under the category of passive income, right? So I don't have to be working in order to earn, which everybody wants, right? It was the whole concept of residential rental income and that,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I think it presents wonderful opportunities for people. You can't necessarily predict that you're going to get it or predict what it's going to be worth. So to me, that would be, it's almost like bonus. When it arrives, it enhances whatever plan I have in place or accelerates my ability to get to where I want to go. So for example, right, I want to be able to bring it from 5 clients to 3 clients at 62 years of age is just an example. Well, maybe you can do it now at 60.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
it's good to think about your equity piece, your startup, those other chunks. Like, that's bonus on top of this. Have discipline and use your, get smart about those various places you're going to put your, what do you call it again? An I-401k, 401I?
solo 401k.
There it is. I'll get it wrong like 6 or 7 times during the show here. Dave's used to my mental struggles. And then this other side, right? That's kind of speculation. That's bonus. It's great, but it's the thing I think is interesting why people like this is a speculation I have control over. So in the past, I might have said, I'm going to do some speculation too. I'm going to go buy some land, and I'm going to do North Dakota today. I'm going to go buy some land out in the Bakken in North Dakota because I'm speculating that that's going to yield me some oil. That's speculating, right? You don't really have any control over that. You're just taking a gamble. But if I'm going to say, hey, if Dave says, John, I got a really good idea. It's a brand new model of a different kind of back scratcher. And, will you jump in on this with me? This kind of, I'm not saying Dave has an idea for a back scratcher. He may, but this kind of stuff is happening a lot right now. A lot. And I think a lot of people are like, that's going to pay off for me. That's part. That's part of what's next. So maybe it's a back scratcher, maybe it's not.
I do want to break in for a second, and we usually break in around the 20-ish or so and let our call-in guests call in. So Brian, why don't you do me a favor? If you'd like to join this conversation and chat with us, why don't you just raise your hand and then we'll let you in. And happy to facilitate you and have you as part of this conversation as well, because I know you've got a lot of great thoughts about thinking better, smarter tools, and probably investments too.
So before he jumps in, Brent, Brian Newmanville, he's a fractional dude, and his dad worked at Control Data. So if you're from the Midwest, he has that in him. So he's become the de facto tech shortcut digital thinker dude, and he shares all of his brilliant stuff that he finds as he wanders around the world and finds these amazing little, I don't know, Dave, nuggets. They're nuggets, right? Nuggets. Yeah. They're so useful and so awesome. So Brent, that's who Brian is, and he's a regular guest. So hi, Brian.
Hey guys, how are you?
Lovely.
Good. Yes. Well, good to meet you, Brent. And hi, guys. So, yeah, I think that what we've been talking about here is really interesting, because it is. There's a whole bunch of different pots of money that are going to come in different ways than we traditionally grew up. As you mentioned, John, that kind of the way we were programmed to
right.
Right. Yeah. And so, certainly in my situation, I'm looking at what are the other things I can do now to invest or to prepare for the future in non-traditional ways. So, like you just mentioned with that other 401k idea, that's one of the things I'm looking at, right? Are there different ways to do that? So really, I think a timely topic for a lot of people at this point.
Brent, can you tell us more about that individual 401k? No financial advice, but what's emerging there for people like Brian and I and Dave and the millions of other, what's in that, right? What are they trying to peel back, and what are they trying to do with that to get that product to us out here?
Yeah. So, there's a lot of numbers that go into making something worth more to, right? In your guys' sense, because you're the solopreneur, you're running the business, you got revenue coming in, you got taxes, et cetera. But typically, I'm just simplifying this. If we just want to compare like a SEP IRA and a solo 401k. The SEP IRA is all based on a percentage of your W-2 earnings, right? So in order to contribute more, you got to earn more.
And we're not W-2.
Right. Well, but you have to recognize W-2 earnings. But so that with the solo 401k, you can defer straight up, just like your 401k is at a business, you can defer your earnings. It's not a percentage anymore. So if you want to pay yourself, $19,000, you can defer $19,000 into the 401k is the employee contribution.
It gets a little complicated, fast, doesn't it? I think your market's going to have to work. Here's why I say that is to make it simple and snack size and something we can really get. We're not going to, we're going to struggle to kind of really, really get that. I think it's going to be kind of hard. I even got lost a little bit. I grew up in the freaking business.
Yeah, I know.
So
it allows you to put, let's just maybe simplify it this way. Your solo 401k will allow you to defer your W-2 earnings that you claim.
Yeah.
And also make an employer contribution as a profit sharing.
So let me unpack that real quick for the financially illiterate like me. And my brother's in the business too, so he's going to yell at me for asking dumb questions. But there are no dumb questions.
Right.
What does defer mean? Tell me the definition to me. What does that mean?
So if we're talking about our earnings, normally we earn those dollars and we're going to pay income taxes in today's rates. If I earn those dollars, but I defer them now into my retirement plan, I don't pay income taxes on them today. I'm going to defer that tax bill into the future.
So I'm going to get $10,000 check from a client every month from here until I'm however long it goes. I'm going to go and write whatever I choose my deferment as and send it to a place, and that place knows this is a deferment, don't tax it.
Right. So I am not making any tax advice. You got to talk to a professional.
All right. Yeah.
I got to get that caveat out there. But yeah, in essence, that's the mechanics. Now, there's obviously contribution maximums for each year that we can do, but essentially that's what you're doing, right? If you're earning this money and you don't need all of it, why pay tax on all of it?
So you can defer the taxes till,
So you choose to take it out at that future date and during that period of time that we'll call retirement, right?
And my mechanism for doing that is my solo 401k.
Yes.
That's what did Brian say? The pots. That's the pot it goes into.
Yep. Same thing in a SEP, but the solo 401k allows you to defer a lot more.
We like that.
And you have a lot more control. Yes.
Which is really important because right now, as a fractional, you're probably looking at and keeping every nickel you can in order to just keep the doors open and reinvest in your business.
Yeah.
So deferring that makes a lot of sense.
Not me. I'm spending it all. I'm going to the casinos. I'm buying another boat. I'm just blowing it all. No,
it's all spending it all on stogies, John.
So I'm gonna just throw one thing out and just to show you the flexibility that you get to have because you got to choose this career, right? Is a fraction.
Yeah.
So with that 401k, that solo 401k, you're the business owner. You created that plan. You got the flexibility. You can create the ability then to take a loan out of it. So now you deferred it, right? And if the future something changes, whatever that is, and financially you now need to maybe take some of that money back, you can take a loan using that solo 401k, which isn't available with something like a SEP.
Now, are there rules with that loan? So if Dave says I got a back scratcher idea, let's each put in $10,000. Can I take a loan against that and put it into his thing?
There are rules on when and how you can take it out. What you do with the money is not a concern. And then the payback and the interest that you have to charge, right? So to get any deeper than that we're walking into an area that's not my wheelhouse. So it would be tax advice.
That's okay. There's no value. You get too deep into that. That's not the purpose of this show.
Yeah.
We're trying to get people to look, I don't know, a year or two, 10, 20 down the line. Yeah. Let's kind of change horses here for a second in that. What are you seeing in terms of the dialogue around retiring? What's happening? There used to be 65, I'm out. 59, I'm out. 71. What's are you seeing some change in activity and some cultural stuff happening around that?
Yeah, I would say anecdotally that your people now phrase it as, I want to get to a point in time where I no longer have to do what I'm doing.
That's a big one.
Right.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
whatever that is, so we, through working with someone to put that retirement goal in place that says, now I've arrived at 61 years of age, for an example.
Yep.
And if I wanted to just pack it up and use my assets to support my lifestyle the rest of my life, I can now do that. But I don't want to do that. So I'm going to keep working. But
Yeah.
I don't have any pressure on having to have 5 clients at any given moment. Maybe I can go down to 3 in the summer or whatever. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Interesting dimension that we see a lot in this world is, traditionally it's the reason a lot of people retire is they burn themselves out. I can't sustain, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturday morning. And this is not a sustainable thing. So they kind of fry out. Well, when people do this stuff, they all of a sudden the energy's back. Like I'm on my own boss. My clients are happy. I don't have an earning, all that stuff that we wished we had in a different environment, a previous environment before COVID, we kind of have now. So what I'm hearing is like, why the hell would I retire? It's just getting good.
Yeah.
It is just getting good. And I think when people before was like, well, I'm going to go, and I'm not knocking this, I'm going to go coach, or I'm going to go volunteer. You can still do that, right? But what's interesting is people are like, why? This is awesome. I never had this. For 30 years, I was working for this company and I never had this kind of freedom.
yeah.
What do you think? You think people are going to stick around and work for themselves longer because of that? Or what's your feelings on that?
Absolutely. Yeah. If people are thinking about that, exactly what you said. I think for too long, right? Generations before us.
Yeah.
You work for the company and you probably work a long time in one space.
Yeah.
And you're just driving to a number.
Yeah.
Right. And when I get there, I'm done. And then I don't want to work because I stayed in one spot and I got burned out. Now, hopefully you're in the driver's seat as a fractional and you're choosing, you get to work with the people that you want to. Why would you want to stop if you don't have to?
Well, exactly.
It's a hobby that pays for itself.
Yeah.
What's that, Dave?
It's a hobby that pays for itself.
No, that's a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
And we use the word flexibility, just what we're doing here, right? Wouldn't happen 10 years ago, the idea of a virtual water cooler. So we have no idea what that flexibility is going to present to us as fractionals, and the ability to do work in different mediums with different, clients that we may never, ever meet in person.
Mm-hmm.
It is an unrealized reality right now, but we're moving into it. And we're already there in many ways.
Yes.
Well, and what's interesting is, I think flexibility and interest in what you're doing drives a lot of that, right? I have such a variety of things I'm engaged with that it's like very fulfilling to do what I do. The old adage of it isn't really work if you love what you're doing. To a large extent, that's kind of true.
Yep. Yeah. Brian, how many different things you've got going on?
Well, I in the retail space, I've got a lot of clients through one of my engagements, and then I've also got a couple of nonprofit clients, and then there's the episodic here and there projects that pop up from other clients. So I've got kind of 3 big things going, and then little things here and there. So it's a nice variety because it's engaged in a bunch of different things: marketing, communications, PR, research, evaluations. So it's a bunch of different fun stuff.
Do you foresee, over the next 5, 10, 15 years that, there's going to be some equity plays, some startups, maybe someone's going to ask you to write for a newspaper. Do you foresee other stuff entering your orbit?
Well, yeah, I do writing for different trade publications now, even, and different things like that. So that's already kind of there. But and I've done a book, so I've kind of done that too.
Yeah,
but I'm interested potentially in being on a board, not a nonprofit board, because I've done a million of those.
Yeah.
And I love that work, but I've already got a bunch of that going.
Mm-hmm.
So, maybe a board of some sort or some kind of advisory capacity in something, just again, to broaden my skills and to play to my interests.
Beautiful. So what's going to happen in that state, Brent, is someone's going to say, Brian, your board role has been very, very valuable to us. Here's 5% of this. What are some things Brent has to think about before he takes that 5%? in terms of these are going to be acorns I can squirrel away someday. What might he think about?
Well, talking to a tax professional, if you can receive that, which way do you want to receive that? We'll call it compensation, right? Because like you've already mentioned, it can be in the form of equity. It can be in the form of dollars. It could potentially be dollars deferred somehow.
Right.
So if there's flexibility on how you receive it and when you receive it, and then the other side is then how do you put it to work? Once you take possession of that compensation, whatever form it is, how do you then put it to work for you?
It gets deep, but the opportunities there, I think, is what we're talking about. We are entering in a new space, aren't we?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just think it's from my point of view, right? I'm passionate about this, and you've heard me, John, mention. I had some people to you on the fractional. I think everybody should explore it, but just what Brian said, it was just, I mean, listen to all the different potential flexible ways that he gets to be in control of what he does. You would not be able to do that if you were working for someone else.
Isn't that something? That just wasn't the reality from post-war until, I don't know how long ago. I mean, Dave, how long do you think this sort of more open, flexible earning, what's it? Because you're kind of an entrepreneur. You've been doing some stuff. No one's going to pin you like, oh, Dave's just a company man.
I haven't been a company man since 08, and I had my side hustle already hammering hard by 08. So
which side hustle was that? This one, what you're doing now?
BusyWeb. Yeah, I started BusyWeb in 99 at the same time I started with the bank, and US Bank was lovely about the whole thing. And they actually paid for my MBA in entrepreneurship while I was at the bank. So,
really?
God bless them. Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah. And I stayed on 8 years past that. So, it's no skin, and it was completely fair. But yeah, it's important. You just have to keep your options open, and you have to think about what that next step is. And that's why I love the themes that we're talking through today. And Brent, this is really cool for, fractionals for sure, but I also serve the B2B services industry and the manufacturing industry. And as people are looking to keep building where they're going to grow, having those options in mind, being flexible, understanding where the industry is going and not being afraid to change. I've had a massive explosion in growth ever since COVID, because everything that used to work in marketing doesn't. And so the things that manufacturing in particular never really paid attention to, digital, are now incredibly important. And so you just need to take that into account. We do have a question from Carolyn on YouTube. Hey, Carolyn. She looks forward to the next 10 years, at which time she's going to be 70, and she loves working and investing in her entrepreneurial lifestyle. Yes. And so, lifestyle is paramount to retiring in comfort. The thing that kind of strikes me, especially about what Carolyn is saying, my parents are both retired, but they've never been busier. And I think most
yours, Dave, yours or Carolyn?
Yeah, mine are. And Carolyn says she's going to be retiring in the next 10 years, when she's 70. So, there's nothing worse than working your entire life toward a goal and then realizing, well, this sucks. Once you're sitting there, you can only play so many rounds of golf. Maybe, I don't know if you can only fish so much, John. You might get bored. I don't know if you.
We
get addicted.
I try to do it along the way. I wake up every day saying today might be the last. So get what you can in there. So I'm not waiting for a day when I can fish all day. I'm fishing my way to then.
Right. But we all need to feel like we're contributing and to hit that zone where we're really crushing something that matters to us. And so no matter what it is, that you need to have that exact same thing in your business and in your life.
Well, I love what Carolyn said, because she's excited.
And Carrie Cook, she just commented in. She's Carrie Cook. Hey, Carrie, it's good to see you.
Yeah, I love what Carrie or Carolyn, whoever is doing it, is the next 10 years, right? Like, I'm gonna retire, but I've never been more excited. I've never been more jazzed. I will tell you, I know people, and I was one of them. It's kind of hard to look at like, I can't wait till I retire, when the mentality is to stop all this nonsense, to make all this go away. It should be a reward, right? This should be the culmination, not the, I don't know, the sad ending, right?
Mhm.
And that's what I'm seeing in the space right now, just in business in general, and entrepreneurs in it, and fractionals in it, is like, I've never been more energized. I've never been more positive. I'm thinking about the future in totally different ways. Speaking of that, Brent, who should we be paying attention to in that space? What magazines, what thought leaders, on what this whole economic world we're going into, where should we be casting our eyes to sort of get a different view of how retirement's going to be at all? Other than yourself, of course. Other than yourself.
Boy, that's a good question. I mean, I wouldn't look at the cable business news channels, so that I wouldn't look there. They're trying.
Now, there's a reason you say that. Tell me why.
Because every time, I mean, here's a perfect, what we're going through right now. This time is different. I don't know how, right? But the problem is that same person next week might say this is the best opportunity, and then the week next week it's the worst opportunity. Because their objective is to get back on the show because they sell advertising.
That's right.
Pure and simple.
That's right.
So
the media has the media has predicted 20 of the last 2 recessions, right?
Yeah.
So doing the job of doom and gloom.
They predict. So what, Brent, if I hear this correctly, what you're saying is maybe they're the last people to know the level of change we have and what's going to manifest.
Well, I mean, maybe they can talk about what's going on economically speaking and in the markets, but I would not get my financial advice from that resource. That's what I would say. That is not.
Who's kind of looking forward? Who's saying, I see this change in how money is, and maybe nobody is. This old fractional wave is not that old.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be surprised me if we're not quite, we haven't really, the thought leaders and the entities haven't quite emerged in it yet.
Yeah, well, I think someone answered your question, but I think it was an interesting post that Tim Voigt put on, wasn't it LinkedIn today, that had the article where I think we're seeing it out in Northern California, where you're seeing chief remote officer, et cetera, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that just speaks to, the biggest businesses are going, hey, what we've been doing, we can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And I think and you and I have had this conversation, I think the opportunity is obviously so early stage when these small companies figure out that barrier of entry that they used to have in terms of knowledge and experience that the larger companies had, that was called their employees, are now available to them in the snack size that works for them. I mean, just think how many medium-sized companies are going to break through those barriers and scale and gain market share against the dominant players, or disrupt an industry or become something new. I think that we think we've seen change since the tech boom. I think it's going to, I think we haven't seen it yet, what it can be. That's
the kind of crystal balling that's really, really interesting, is embracers of change. It's hard to hold on to something that doesn't hold still. Right? It's like, I really want to hold on and invest. It's like, but it's not holding still because it hasn't run its course, and it probably won't run its course for many, many years with this whole change we're in right now. And it's not just fractional, right? Like Dave, you said, it is the I know manufacturing, for example, you're right. You weren't doing social media campaigns.
Not a lot.
4 years ago.
Yeah.
And now it's like, boy, that's absolutely in the mix. And because you're, in addition to being a digital agency, you're a very good change agent. Like, we're not just going to give you a pre-made thing. You're crafting things on where people are and where people are going. Embracing change can have great.
Well, and even, what's interesting is a lot of these little tech tips I'm giving, right? Software as a service. Thank you. Software as a service companies that are coming up with these, unique tools that, the big companies are creating them too, but you can't get them, or you can't afford them, one or the other, or both. Right. Whereas some of these guys that are, startups with small businesses are coming up with some pretty neat tools that let, me, the entrepreneur do things that I otherwise couldn't do.
Right.
So there's also that whole disruption effect of that.
Yes.
Couple your talent or strength or skill with some tools that you need, and all of a sudden it brings it to a whole new level.
So if you don't follow Brian on LinkedIn, you can find him on LinkedIn, and you can also find him inside of the Voyager community, everybody who's listening and all of that. But he's sort of tapped the vein of what's out there. And here's why I think it's really important, and why I appreciate Brian so much, is America has gotten itself in sort of enterprise think, right? Like, I think enterprise, I think a lot of seats for this software. I think I want the big whale. America thinks that way. It's not right. It's not wrong. It's how we have been doing things for generations, right? I think, Brian, what you're getting into is America is going to have to start to think small business now, because what do we have? Tim quoted this the other day. We have 3 times as many people opening an LLC than we've had in the last 5 years combined. 3 times more small businesses, 3 times more new SaaS businesses and manufacturing businesses and food businesses and whatever else is going to come out of that. 3 times. That is not a small number. Brent, if your portfolio did 3 times what it did before, it's nuts. Yeah. That is massive, massive impact. So, but none of that is enterprise. Not a single one. It's not going to be 500 subscribers to a thing. It's not going to be enterprise. It's going to be small, and it's going to be intimate. And I think that's where our growth is. It sounds weird, doesn't it? But I think our growth is small.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a soapbox. Brian, educate us a little bit on what's there. What do you think is emerging?
You had a thing that you wanted to share too, right?
Let Brian go. If there's time, great.
Got it. Yeah.
So John, repeat your question. I didn't get the whole thing.
So the small stuff, right? The things that you see that support the small, that don't even want to be enterprise level.
Well, I mean, there's so many different applications out there. I just picked up a deal on this tool that does semantic and natural language processing to categorize open-ended comments from, say, survey data. Mm-hmm. And like, it's machine learning. But it's a tool that I can have access to. It's not a big company. It's a guy that started this up. And all of a sudden that makes me very productive and able to do things that that's just one example, but it puts me on an enterprise level with in a non-enterprise situation. So all of a sudden I'm able to multiply my effect, right? And there's all sorts of things like that, we talked about when I was on.
I feel like it's almost like the Roaring 20s. Like, there's so much new activity going on. Do we have our arms around it? No. But is it emerging, and is the energy there? Absolutely.
Yep.
It's absolutely right there. So it begs a good question. This will go back to Brent. And Brent, whatever legal things you have to say, this isn't advice or guidance, but we're very used to having a fund. And that fund spreads, put those investments across a number of businesses that we think solid. Maybe they're in tech, maybe they're in food or whatever. Do you foresee a time when there's going to be funds, or maybe there already are, around the small? I see funds like, I'm going to put it in tech and food and these big, and it's going to be Coke, and it's going to be, known entities in the Fortune 2000. Do you see funds coming out? They're going to be like, there should be funds around maybe 30 or 40 newer ideas, smaller ideas, but have great potential for growth.
Well, I think what you're saying, there's small cap funds out, right?
Funds that are how small.
Well, and there's even ones that will label micro.
Okay.
Micro cap. So I don't know for sure if we're talking the same. If what you're saying and what I'm saying are the same, but probably, if not, they're very close.
Yeah.
So
micro cap. Well, let's do a little education here. What's micro cap? What's the difference between micro cap and small cap?
I think it depends on the company that's running, and there's no hard rule that says, if I'm a micro cap fund, I can't invest in a company that's above X in cap size. But it's going to be in the single millions probably.
Okay, so, and that might be in a fund.
Potentially, yeah.
So if you like the idea, right? Like, oh yeah, it's micro cap. I'm gonna put some money in here, but I think the idea is strong. It's geared towards a future state of, I don't know, maybe it's whatever it is, where we think we're going.
Yeah.
Where do you find those? You talk to your financial guy, it's like, I'm interested in micro cap. I'm interested in small cap. Or are you guys bringing that stuff to people now?
Depending on the person and the risk tolerance and what they want to do, that can be a component of a portfolio. But certainly they can do that with an advisor or, on their own as well. But they're available. So
they're available. How much out there are they in your estimation? Is it, I don't know, it's hardly touched. It's out there, but most of the money goes into more bigger things. Where is it? Where is that? Where are those funds?
Yeah, the vast majority of the dollars are going into mutual funds that will be owning larger and more established companies for sure. Yes.
So the micro funds, small funds, by what Brian is saying, we're talking about all the micro businesses starting now. Those are going to ultimately be micro funds. There's that we're probably going to see more activity there. I'm not giving advice, but we should see that. Dave, what do you think of all that stuff?
Yeah, I agree. I think, it's kind of, I mean, you have to as an investor and as a business, you kind of have to be able to pat your head and rub your tummy. So
I don't know if I can do that.
Right. Or walk and chew gum for those of us that are less
Right.
ideal. And you have to skate to where the puck is going while still handling the business at hand.
Yeah.
And so, big corporations and the stuff that they're doing, there's some really good innovation that we're seeing at the enterprise level.
Yep.
There's also a bunch of really small businesses that are making a lot more nimble moves and maybe even taking some of the learnings from that. One of the things that I try to keep my eye on as much as possible is what B2C is doing and applying that to B2B.
Why? What do you see there? Why do you look there?
The money and the transactional distance on B2C, and B2C is business to consumer, it's retail businesses, right? So have something and sell it, e-commerce businesses, whatever, right? The distance between decision to buy and actual purchase is very small, and so people can pivot and move around and do all kinds of cool stuff. So there's AI, you can demo something by putting your Google Glass on or your Oculus on and like trying things in real life or whatever. And there's all kinds of really cool stuff that you can do in that space. And if you can take some of that and apply it to your larger organization or your business to business organization, maybe coming up with ways to stay along the same level. If I'm a B2B manufacturer and I'm producing a widget, if I could come up with an AI tool to make sure that widget was going to fit the practice, or to even hold your phone up and say, here's how to install widget B into part C for photocopiers or for, high tolerance machinery, whatever. Pretty incredible, right? The technology is getting so cool and so good now that the cost to do some of that is getting pretty low. And so you just have to keep your eye on what's happening and figure out, okay, well, how can I make this apply to me as a micro business? And, I have 23 people that work with me, so I'm pretty dang small, but, and most of us are just us working with a few other businesses in the fractional community, right?
And so, you've got independent people in your mix too, right?
Contractors are about half of us. Yeah.
Think about that.
These are people that are coming in and out and doing stuff when they feel like it. And when they don't want to, because they want to, I've got an employee right now, a contract employee who is in Brazil because he got his green card, whatever, for the US. He became
naturalized citizen.
So he actually got his citizenship to the US. And so now his fiance is in Brazil. And so he's living with her for a few months. They're going to get married and they're going to come back.
Oh, no problem. Winter? What is he, nuts?
Well, he's going to come back as soon as it's spring, I think.
Yeah, come back in May. Don't come back in.
Yeah.
Don't come back in January. This isn't a good place to be in January.
Yeah. In the meantime, he's having the most amazing coffee in the world, right?
Well, that actually, and it's a good thing as we kind of get to the top of the hour here is, I think another thing that we talk about where to invest and how to invest and what to look for. and all of that stuff. But I think oftentimes not wrapped in the conversation that I would like to talk about here is how much more quality of life matters now than ever. We all had in the last few years, we all in one way, shape, or form came to grips with our own mortality.
Mhm.
We know people who died or feuded our. I mean, we just had death at a massive level, and we still do the war, but that tends to prioritize things for you. And I don't know, Brent, kind of how you guys talk about that now, but you can secure a future. But I don't know. Do you see? You got to pay attention to today almost more.
You know what's interesting in saying that. So part of what I try to do is try to ask questions on what's important. And it's interesting. I would say I don't even know how often, but it's extremely high in terms of percentage where maintaining a healthy lifestyle is one of the top 3 choices, right? And I say that because obviously as a financial advisor, you would think we're asking questions outside of that. And if someone's coming to a financial advisor, that's not something they're going to share. But obviously money pays for it, but working in a flexible work environment, think how that enhances your ability to achieve that, maintaining your healthy lifestyle, right? I can now work out when I want to, not at 5 a.m. and I got to go to bed at 9 because I got to be, I got a 1.5 hour commute to work or whatever that is, right? So, and I can make a meal at home now because I am working remote, and that's a healthy meal, not a fast food meal.
It's not Chipotle on the ride home.
Right.
Yeah. How far we've come in that, I grew up in a time when everybody smoked, and that was, just fine. Nothing wrong with that. And just a few years before me they were like, smoking is how you get rid of the common cold.
Right. Well, hey, you and I were born at the time. I still think that you could technically smoke when you were pregnant. It wasn't frowned on.
I know my mother did. I was born in 1968, and there's pictures of her having now she hasn't, obviously, but they did, right? And nobody knew, and that was that. But now, like we're God bless us, as a society, where we're like, no, that go to the gym, work out, go for a walk, read a book.
Yeah.
Have some mental time. The whole thing can end. Life is so fragile. And we've all learned that, right? It is so very fragile, and really good to secure a future, but don't obsess. Don't sacrifice that secure tomorrow for a day that is really worth living.
Yeah.
Brent, is that coming into the conversation more and more with you and your clients and the people you help?
Yeah.
Has it always been there? Or is it more?
No, I mean, I think it was getting back to what I said before. It was just way more simple, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to work till X because I need Y. So when do I get it? And that's all it was. I mean, obviously I'm simplifying, but you know what I mean? I mean, because you've already brought it up. So why can't someone keep working as long as they want?
Yeah.
Doing what they want to do at the level they need to do. They just need to maybe get to that point where they're no longer doing it because they have to.
Right. Which has been the nature for a very long time. I foresee a time when you have a business that's you and a therapist conjoined to help people think about their future.
Right.
I don't want you to be the therapist, right? And you don't want them to be the money guy.
Yeah.
Dave, I stepped on you there for a second. My apologies.
No, I love it. I'm just putting down. I think as we get into the final minutes here, I want to open up my office hours notes and get into what we're talking about next week. And we're
at that time already.
We are. It's 5 till. So Patty Radford Henderson with Annam Planning is going to be showing how to get top-down alignment on omni-channel approaches to strategic planning. There's a lot of things that go into your strategy and your strategic planning. And John, you and I have both met Patty, and she's got a really cool tool, but even better, a really cool approach to help you keep all of the things that you're doing and bring it into one strategy. So it's going to be a fun conversation. I can't wait.
Patty's quite the genius. When I was speaking at Digital Summit recently, we were at the same summit, and unfortunately I couldn't see her presentation because they were at the same time. But I really want to see that presentation. So I'm looking forward to it next week. But I think what she's doing is a great example of thinking for what's thinking in a more keeping things more simple and be small and organized and nimble and keep the stuff together. Maybe not necessarily at enterprise level, at the small level. I think she's doing some really brilliant things. I got to know her several years ago, back in my agency days. And boy, that's one sharp cookie, as they like to say. Brent, we are at the top of the hour, excuse me, which means it's time for me to go have lunch. But thank you so much. Did you enjoy the show?
Absolutely. Yeah. Love it.
Have
As you've heard me say 100 times, I just love this whole fractional thing. Putting yourself in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
Right.
How can we find you, Brent?
You can find me online, Brent Voeller at edwardjones.com. And there's some contact info from there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thank you for asking.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So Dave, you were talking about next week.
Yeah.
And we've got a show, and then Dave and I are, we've done so many shows and we're starting to get more organized. It only took 50 to get our poop in a group.
Right.
But we might switch to seasons, and where we do a bunch of shows at once and then take a break and go. So look for maybe some fun changes as we all do, right? We innovate our way forward after doing a lot of things differently and new. And I don't know, we'll see, but keep tuning in, keep looking for the posts, keep joining us. But Dave and I are trying to innovate.
That's right. That's right.
So, well, here we go into the weekend.
Brent, thank you so much for your time. It's been amazing meeting you. I'm looking forward to staying connected and to hearing more as you keep going.
Brian, thank you for being such a good guest. Thank you, listeners out there on YouTube and every place else. Spread the word, share the link, and if you're here next week, we'll see you next week.
All right. Have a fantastic day, everybody. Take care.
That's it. That's the show.
That's the show.
All right. We're hanging up. Have a good weekend, all.